Is sugar a problem for you? Should you cut sugar out of your diet? Is sugar addictive? And is sugar the number one reason why you can't lose weight? Is that the number one reason that you're gaining weight? These are really straightforward questions on the topic of sugar, which is huge. There's no way we can cover sugar in less than 10 minutes, but we can cover some key questions. These questions were inspired by a video put out by a health expert I greatly admire and respect. He has a lot of followers. He puts out fantastic content. He's an in-your-face, no BS, no nonsense type of guy, and I really enjoy that because I think some people need that type of coaching and accountability. His conclusion, which is based on this video, of the number one nutritional advice that he can give you in terms of losing weight is sound. I think his conclusion is rock solid. That conclusion is you want to treat processed sugars the same way you treat alcohol. Why? Because they act very similarly in the body. They engage and light up the reward system pathway, which is called the mesolimbic dopaminergic system. When some food, some substance, sugars, alcohols, heroin, cocaine, nicotine, crystal meth activate this pathway, it has you wanting more of that particular substance, and thus it leads into a cascade of substance dependence, and in this case, sugar dependence. Now, sugar dependence can be problematic for a lot of people because people tend to overeat, overconsume sugary foods. The big questions are, just because this pathway happens, is sugar an addictive substance? Is it classified as an addictive substance? And just because people overconsume sugar, does that necessarily mean they're overconsuming calories to the point that they're gaining weight? These are the two questions I want to address. These are the two premises that he uses in order to prop up his conclusion of sugar being as problematic as alcohol and you should avoid it. Except his is more in favor of sugar being addictive and sugar being responsible for weight gain. Before we even start, technically sugar, dietary sugar, let me preface that, isn't essential. I repeat, is not essential. You do not need to ingest exogenously from food sources sugars. Yes, you do not need fruits, you do not need potatoes, you do not need legumes, you do not need rice, you do not need bread in order for your body to be supplied with glucose. Why? Because your body can produce glucose endogenously, naturally within the body through a process called gluconeogenesis, in which it takes energy from fats and proteins, triglycerides, glycerol, and amino acids, converts them into glucose. That glucose will then be used for the brain, because the brain is the number one user of glucose in your body. It requires roughly 130 grams of sugar per day in order to function. And I repeat, you do not need to get 1 single gram from food for survival or for functioning. Does that mean you shouldn't have sugar? That's up for debate. It depends on who you talk to, it depends on the goals, it depends on what somebody can operate on, it depends on how physically active you are. If you're talking to a high-level athlete, they're probably going to say there's no way I can compete on a low-carb diet, and that's the case for 99% of people. So no, dietary sugar is not essential. Same thing with alcohol. You do not need a drop of alcohol in order to survive or function. Alcohol is just, hey, this is great. We live in a society where we are afforded the luxury of alcohol and getting drunk. Let's do it, even though we don't need to do it. So in that case, sugars and alcohols are not necessary. They are not essential. So again, pretty sound advice. Avoid the processed sugars like table sugars, because those are man-made anyway. Those are highly processed, the same way you would avoid alcohol. Problem solved. You're probably going to be healthier, especially if you overindulge in sugars as of this recording. And if you drink alcohol and you overconsume sugar, well, then you're addressing 2 birds with 1 stone. But now let's go into the actual premises. Is sugar addictive? He makes a mockery of people who believes that sugar is not addictive by doing that voice and facial expressions. Oh, but sugar is not addicting. I think that's kind of how he says it. And judging from the comments on this video, a lot of his supporters also believe that sugar is addicting. But if we look at the research, it's anything but clear cut. Now, sugar has addictive qualities according to research, but that is not the same thing as being considered an addictive substance. As I mentioned earlier, sugar, like hard substances, cocaine, heroin, meth, alcohol, nicotine, activates the mesolimbic dopaminergic system, which releases dopamine as a result of sugary foods activating it. That eventually leads to substance dependence if it's activated with enough intensity and frequency. What is substance dependence? According to psychological research, it's when you have a hard time quitting, you have cravings, you indulge despite experiencing negative consequences, and you have withdrawal symptoms. Does this sound familiar? Many people overindulge in sugar despite the negative consequences, despite the tooth decay, cavities, diabetes, joint pain, poor energy, weight gain. These are some negative consequences of overconsuming sugars. How often do people with a sweet tooth crave sugar? Probably often. If you have a sweet tooth like I do, you're always craving sugar or something that has sugar in it. I have a client who absolutely cannot say no to a donut if he sees them, especially at work. And what about people who get all cranky, bent out of shape, irritable if they don't have enough sugar or they're trying to reduce the amount of sugar they're eating? They might experience detox symptoms, which can be classified as withdrawal symptoms such as headaches, irritability, poor energy, and sleep. Sounds like addictive qualities to me. Not to mention, there's a key difference between sugars and hard substances, and that is availability. Sugar is available everywhere. If you are the average American, you can get sugar anywhere. You go to a bodega, go to a 7-Eleven, go to a CVS across the street. I live across from a CVS. That is not a convenience. It's not a problem for me. If I have a craving, I go out of my door. It's literally a 30-second walk. It's everywhere. Unlike cocaine, heroin, alcohol, you can start eating sugar. You can start obtaining sugar as soon as you're born and get it anywhere. There is no age limit. Heck, research even shows your taste buds start forming while you're in the womb. In other words, depending on what your mother eats, you can develop a taste for sweets. You can develop a sweet tooth even before you have teeth. Aside from that, though, the other thing that differentiates sugar addiction with those of hard substances, severity. How many people die from withdrawal symptoms of sugar? Pretty much zero. It's very uncommon for people to check themselves into rehab for a sugar withdrawal like they would Klonopin. How many people die from a sugar overdose? Close to zero, unless they are an uncontrolled diabetic, such as type 1 or type 2 diabetes. So yes, there are some downstream long-term negative consequences of sugar indulgence, such as diabetes, which is the main one, but that takes years to develop. And there is no causal link between type 1 diabetes, which is insulin-dependent diabetes, in which your pancreas, the beta cells in your pancreas, cannot create insulin, and sugar intake. That's a lot more genetic and environment-based. People don't die from withdrawal symptoms, and people don't die from overindulgence or ODing on sugar the same way they would on heroin or cocaine or Klonopin or meth. Sugar addiction is also very context dependent. A study in 2007 done on rodents quotes this: "The evidence supports the hypothesis that under certain circumstances, rats can become dependent." Under what certain circumstances, you ask? In this case, antisocial settings with ad libitum access to sugar. Imagine a shut-in playing video games in a dark, dank, dingy basement. World of Warcraft, 8 hours per day. He has unlimited access to sugary processed junk. Mountain Dew, Dr. Pepper, candy, taco bowls, fried chicken breast sandwiches. Imagine he gets meaning and purpose out of playing video games. He has no incentive to work. What do you think this person is going to do? You're describing me right now. You're exactly right. He's going to keep himself in that basement and eat whatever the heck he wants. And he's going to be on the road to diabetes. And this is exactly what happened with rats when they were taken out of their pro-social, normal rat behavior settings and given unlimited access to sugar. But what happened when researchers put those rats back into their pro-social settings and they took access to sugar away? They started acting like normal rats. They started socializing. What do you think is going to happen when this particular person, this hypothetical person, who's not really hypothetical because we're just explaining me right now, meets a person who he values, finds a job that he really enjoys doing, and is making a meaningful impact on other people's lives? What do you think is going to happen? You guessed it. He's probably not going to shut himself in and play video games all day anymore and eat like crap. He's probably going to take better care of themselves because, hey, he has a better life's purpose. So again, there are ways to curb the addiction, but it's very context dependent. And again, you can make the same argument for heroin, cocaine, if you take these people out of the settings in which it fosters dependence on heroin and cocaine. But the key here is the severity. And then in 2016, a landmark study comes out. Given the lack of evidence supporting it, we argue against the premature incorporation of sugar addiction into the scientific literature and public policy recommendations. Now, this flies in the face of what we all believe. Sugar is addicting. Sugar is addictive. Heroin and cocaine addicts, they admit quitting sugar is more difficult than quitting heroin and cocaine. The reason it's more difficult, and this is what research says, this is their survey and questioning, is because they can get sugar anywhere. It's so easy to get sugar. If it's in your face all the time and you're addicted to the same activation of that reward system, how are you going to say no? You know, it's so difficult to say no, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's addictive. Now, I will say, these are just studies. These studies are refuting each other, and that is the whole point of the scientific method. Scientific inquiry is to try to get closer to the truth, and here is the truth. The truth is we don't know if sugar has just addictive qualities or is an addictive substance. What we do know is that sugar is very context dependent, and it affects each person a little bit differently. So take that for what you will. What about this whole thing about sugar causing weight gain? Health experts, if you ask any well-intentioned, well-meaning health experts and you say, hey, does sugar cause weight gain? Most of them will say, sugar doesn't really cause weight gain. Overconsumption causes weight gain. It doesn't really matter if you eat sugar, fats, or carbohydrates. If you eat more than what your body can burn off or need, you will gain weight. It will impact the number on the scale. This is in accordance with the first law of thermodynamics, which dictates that energy can be neither created nor destroyed, just converted and transferred. So if your body needs 2,000 calories in order to maintain its body weight and you're eating 4,000 calories, well, guess what? You're probably going to gain weight. But why do health experts still want to throw a particular nutrient group under the bus like carbohydrates? Because it's easy. There's a track record. Atkins diet, ketogenic diet, low carb diets, they have track records. They help people lose weight. But do they help people lose weight because there's some inherent evilness attached to carbohydrates or something else going on? Well, if we use the logic of the first law of thermodynamics, we can come to the conclusion that these low carb ketogenic diets work not because they're cutting out carbs, but because they're cutting calories. Prime example. People who lose weight by cutting out processed crap will lose weight because they cut out the processed crap, and thus they cut calories. Processed crap, pound for pound, have more calories than unprocessed crap. Most people who cut out processed crap are not going to replace that processed crap with less processed crap. In other words, if somebody was eating 4,000 calories from a mixed diet of healthy and unhealthy crap, and they cut out 2,000 calories of unhealthy crap, they're not going to replace those unhealthy calories with 2,000 calories of healthy crap. They're not going to go from 4,000 calories of mixed foods to 4,000 calories of healthy foods. They're most likely going to cut out the 2,000 calories and stay there. Why? Because they'll have come to the realization that they don't need to eat 4,000 calories. If they can get by on 2,000 calories of healthy food, stay full, stay satisfied without any cravings, and they're going to lose weight, why would they want to eat 4,000 calories? But let's not get it twisted. You can still gain weight eating healthy, natural, unprocessed foods. It's all about the amount that determines the number on the scale. And another one, a lot of foods that are problematic. Think about the foods that are problematic. Pastas, pizzas, shepherd pies. They not only contain a lot of carbohydrates, but they also contain a lot of fat. The creams, the oils, the butters, those things contain calories. And again, if we are going in accordance with the first law of thermodynamics, it doesn't matter if you eat carbohydrates or fats. If you overconsume calories, you eat more calories than what your body needs, you're going to gain weight. Now again, not all processed foods that are problematic are high in both carbohydrates and fats, but a lot of them are. A lot of the junk. If you cut out the junk foods that are generally higher in carbohydrates, you're going to reduce the calories. I think there's not really much argument there. Here's the thing to keep in mind. The calories from junk food aren't just coming from sugars. They're also coming from fats. And I'm going to use a common story that I use to illustrate it because it perfectly illustrates the scenario. I once had a client who came to me. She wanted to lose weight. She had about 30 pounds she wanted to lose. We were losing weight at a good clip for the first couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden her weight loss stalled. And I was trying to figure out what's going on. Had her sending me the pictures. We're working out 3 days a week. There's no reason why her weight loss should have just stalled. And I asked her, are you doing anything at home that you're not keeping track of or writing down, such as eating or snacking? She gives it a little bit of thought. She says, you know what? Every time I go into the kitchen, I do take a big dollop of peanut butter. A big dollop of peanut butter. How big of a dollop? She goes, well, the knife is there and I just shove the knife in. I try to take out as much as I can that the knife can handle. I says, okay, let's measure that. So we measure it and it comes out to be almost 2 tablespoons just on that knife. And I'm like, how often do you go in the kitchen? She goes, ugh. And this is where she's starting to come to the realization that she was probably doing something wrong. I go into the kitchen about 8 times a day. She's a housewife, she doesn't work. 8 times a day. If we break that down, how many calories would that be on average? Over 800 calories. Did she need the peanut butter? Nope. Was she having the peanut butter for any particular reason? Nope. Could she cut it out? Yep. Did she cut it out? Yep. Did she lose weight? Yes. How much? She started losing 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds a week again until she hit her 30-pound weight loss goal, which was fantastic. And all it really required was a couple of tweaking, definitely the peanut butter. But peanut butter, if you ask a lot of people, is a healthy food. It has carbohydrates, it has fats, it has protein. But do you know what it has the most of? Do you know where most of its calories come from? Fats. And what happened in this scenario? My client cut out or drastically reduced the amount of healthy food she was eating that tended to have a high percentage of calories or fats. And she started losing weight, which just goes to show you it's not just the processed crap, just the processed sugars that has you gaining weight or losing weight. It is energy in general. Now, again, if you want a differential effect on your health and your performance and the way your body looks, then it would probably behoove you to follow a personalized plan that takes into consideration how much protein, fat, and carbohydrate you actually need in order to fuel your body properly. So this was my talk. We talked about addiction. We talked a little bit about addiction. We talked about whether or not sugars are responsible for the weight gain. I hope this was helpful. If you want to know who this influencer is, he's great. I highly recommend you listen to him. Really rough around the edges, so you need to have a little bit of tougher skin. Message me. If you have any questions, comments on my segment, message me, email me, david@strongbylee.com. I'm sure there are some things I missed. I'm talking off the top of my head right now, but I would welcome your feedback greatly. And if you need any help with accountability, with motivation, personalization, let's talk, david@strongbylee.com. Until next time, be strong.